Hey friends, it's Mrs. Van. Rudy is under my bed today. For some reason, he didn't want to join us, but his brother Cody, there's Cody. You can see him right there in the background. He's going to join us today for our reading of Continuing On with the book Guest by Mary Downing Hahn. We are on chapter 11. There are 17 chapters in this book, so I've got a few chapters to catch up on, and I want to get it done this week and next week so that hopefully you will get the entire book done. And I'm anxious to see what's going on. So let's continue on with our journey with Molly and the guest. Chapter 11. The next day came, dark, as always, and mizzling with rain and fog. I longed for sunlight and blue skies, for fields and meadows, for sheep on the hillsides as far as I could see, for larks singing over my head. I looked for my dog, but he wasn't there. Neither was Aiden or Guest. I was alone by the dying fire. My dog, I called. Aiden? Guest? Where are you? The only answer came from a rock. Not a rock, a rook, perched on a branch over my head. He cawed once, shifted his weight, and showered me with rainwater as he flew off. Had my stupidity driven them all away, even Guest? What was I to do without them? Alone, I was no match for the kind folk. Kind. I almost choked on that word. Those ones didn't know the meaning of kind. Hateful and merciless they were. As careless of mortal lives as if they were ants or flies. Pests, vermin, things to destroy. I hid my face in my hands and began to cry. I was lost. I'd never see Thomas. I'd never find my way home. I'd be captured and die in this dark, miserable place. If only I could go back to that day in the garden when I started all of this with careless words. I hadn't meant to call attention to Thomas, but even though I knew the locket protected him, I'd fastened it around my neck. If I hadn't done that, they couldn't have taken him. I thought I could make everything right by persuading the kind folk to give Thomas to me, but I'd failed miserably, stupidly, foolishly. I'd never get Thomas now. There was nothing to do but find my way home and beg Mam and Daddo to forgive me. I lay on the cold ground by the dead fire and wept for all the mistakes I'd made. Molly, get up! Guest pried my hands away from my face. You cry. I sat up and hugged him so tightly he squirmed to free himself. I thought everyone left and I was all alone in the dark lands. He held out my dog's hat filled with berries. Look, I finded food for you. I devoured the berries even though some of them weren't quite ripe. And after I swallowed the last one, I felt better. Where is my dog? I asked Guest. He and Aiden go for horses. We get away fast on horses. They run, faster, faster, faster. Guest's voice rose, and he bounced up and down on his skinny legs. I never rode a horse. Hush, I whispered. Hush, calm yourself. We mustn't make too much noise. They might come again. Guest pressed his finger to his mouth and grinned. Tell me, I said, is my dog still angry? Did he say anything about me? My dog said to watch you and not let you do foolish thing. I took that to mean my dog didn't have much faith in me. Well, I'd show him I wasn't as foolish as he thought. I'd stay right here with Guest and wait for him to return. While we waited, I sat by the fire and Guest squatted beside me, building little towers out of stones. All around us, the woods were silent, as if they were waiting too. Suddenly, Guest clutched my arm. Molly, listen, someone comes. Not my dog, not Aiden. A twig snapped with a tiny crack. A leaf moved like a whisper. My hand went to the locket. Such a little thing it was. A bauble made of iron and coated with silver. But it had saved me last night. Jumping to my feet, I called, Who's there? No one answered. No one stepped forth, but the ferns quivered as if something smaller than a man and bigger than a fox hid in their fronds. Guest sniffed as if he were a dog. Smell like kind folk, he whispered. I held up the locket. Come out! We know you're there! After a few moments, a girl stepped from behind a tall oak. She wore the gray cloak of kind folk and blended into the mist. She stopped when she saw the locket. I mean you no harm, she told me in a low voice. I would not be fooled again, not by a sweet voice or a pretty face. Brandishing the locket as if it were a flaming sword, I said, not a step closer. Please trust me, she said. I come in friendship. Guest trembled, but I hid my fear. Trust you? No, I will not. I know full well the tricks your kind play. The girl pointed at Guest. He's what I've come to see. She ran her eyes over him. 'Tis no wonder my mother took Tiarnak and left the changeling in his place. Your mother didn't just take my brother. She stole him. The girl put on a haughty face. The Lady Duatha did not steal your brother. She made a trade. Her baby for your mother's baby. A trade is something two people agree to, but my mother knew nothing of this so-called trade until it was done and Thomas was gone. Your mother is a thief, and you know it. Truly, you have less sense than an acorn newly fallen from a tree. If Lady Duatha learns you call her a thief, you will regret speaking ill of her. I swung the locket at the girl, and she jumped back. Do not touch me with that, I beg of you. I swung the locket closer to her face. Tell me who you are and why you're here, and do not lie. My name is Aislinn, daughter of Lady Duatha. Although it shames me to admit it, the changeling is my half-brother. That's why I wanted to see him. If you've come to take him, I won't let you. He's my friend, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Huh, you're more than welcome to him. He's neither a kind one nor a traveler, but something in between. A misfit that belongs nowhere. I looked at Aislinn in surprise. Guest's father is a traveler? Do you not know who his father is? Can't you guess? Guest has been building a tiny stone house for a green caterpillar he'd found, but when he heard his name, he looked up. You know my daddo? I looked at Guest and realized I must have known all along. My dog had given himself away from the very beginning. His kindness to Guest, the language they shared, the affection he showed. Aislinn knew I'd figured it out. My mother loved my dog, and he loved her, and when the queen found out, she banned him from the Darklands. Such love is forbidden. My dog is my daddo, my dog is my daddo. Guest clapped his hands and laughed. My mother still has affection for my dog, maybe even love. It has softened her. Aislinn tossed her head as if she wanted me to know she wasn't soft. My mother fears what the queen will do if she captures my dog. She also pities your brother. Why does she pity Thomas? He's happy here. So happy that he wants to stay in the Darklands. In a voice so low I barely heard her, Aislinn said, Tiarnak believes he will be our king, but we have not been completely truthful with him. Well, that's no surprise, I said. I waited for her to explain, but her words hung in the air like a bridge to nowhere. I stepped closer to her. What doesn't Thomas know? Do you understand what a tithe is? Of course I do. We pay a tithe to the lord of the estate, whose fields we plow and plant and harvest. It's a tax. Coins if we have them, but it can also be crops or a calf or a lamb. But what does tithing have to do with my brother? Every 7 years we are sworn to give the Dark Lord of these lands a tithe. That's the price we pay to roam the world as free as the wind. Tonight is the eve of tithe. We will celebrate with my marriage to Tiarnak. What she said was so ridiculous I almost laughed. How can you marry? Thomas is a child, and you're not much older than I am. Hear me out, Molly, please. After the wedding ceremony, Tiarnak will be crowned king. He will rule for 1 day, and then... I waited for her to go on, but she stared at the ground as if she'd been struck speechless. What happens after that 1 day? My words were ashes in my mouth. I dreaded her answer. Think, Molly. Do not force me to tell you. Tell me, I beg you, that Thomas is not the tithe. Even the kind folk cannot be that wicked. Aislinn looked down as if ashamed to meet my eyes. It's why he was taken. The bonniest boy in mortal land is the tithe that Cernunnos demands. This cannot be, I cried. It must not be. The queen cannot be so heartless. Hush, Molly, and listen to me. Tiarnak was a sweet baby. before the kind folk spoiled him with promises and baubles and clothes of velvet. He's become a foolish, prideful boy, but he does not deserve to be tithed to the Dark Lord, nor do you and the others deserve the fate the Queen has planned for you. The air seemed to turn colder. What is our fate? After the wedding, the Queen will lead the wild hunt. You and your companions will be her prey. No one escapes from her hounds and her horsemen. All of you will be captured and killed, and the changeling will be left to die in the forest. I took a step away from Aislinn. No, it couldn't be true. It was too cruel, too wicked. I glanced at Guest to see if he'd heard, but he had sat several feet away, watching the caterpillar crawl up and down his arm. But my locket, I whispered. It protects us from you. Just last night I used it against a mob of kind folk. They fled into the forest to escape it. Aislinn shook her head. The Queen has powers far greater than your locket. Nothing you can do will stop her. What am I to do then? My mother and I have made a plan. We cannot promise it will work, and it will put you in great danger. Whatever it is, I will do it to save Thomas, because without him, I have no reason to go home. Aislinn opened the bag she carried and pulled out a long gray cloak, much like the one she wore. Duatha wove invisibility into every thread of this cloak. As long as you wear it, you can come and go as we do, no more than a shadow in the shadow of something else. I took the cloak from her. It was as silky and light as milkweed fluff. Cautiously, I wrapped it around me. Cover your head. Don't let your face show. I did as she said and turned to Guest. Can you see me? He looked up from the little house and dropped the white stone he'd been about to add to it. No! Off! Take that off! Want to see you! I lowered the hood. Here I am, silly. I don't like kind folk magic. Bad. Don't fret, Guest. I won't do anything foolish. I stroked the cloak's soft fabric and turned to Aislinn. It must be woven of cobwebs, mist, moonbeams, and secrets. Something of that sort, with a little magic mixed into the weaving of it. She looked into my eyes. Listen closely and say if you can do what I tell you. It's the only way to save your brother. Guest tugged at my skirt to get my attention. No foolish thing. Give it back. Don't trust kind folk. My dog. I twitched my skirt away from him. Hush. Let Aislinn speak. Aislinn spoke in a low voice. When night falls, I'll come for you. Wear the cloak with the hood over your head so no one can see you. I'll lead you into the center of the stones. There I'll leave you and join Tiarnak at the high table. Guest whimpered and pulled on my dress and begged me to wait for my dog to return. I slapped his hands away. Be quiet, Guest. Guest backed away from me. I wanted to apologize to him for the slap, which truly was more of a tap. But instead, I waited for Aislinn to tell me the rest of the plan. Watch for me to give your brother a golden goblet. When he drinks, he will grow weary. As soon as he sleeps, approach from behind and wrap the cloak around him. Make sure you keep the hood on and stay hidden. Tiarnak will be too drowsy to struggle. Leave as quickly and as quietly as you can. I tried to think of what might go wrong, but there were so many possibilities. So I said nothing and waited for Aislinn to tell me more. Make certain that Madog and Aiden are ready to depart the moment you return with Tiarnak. When the Queen discovers he's gone, she will lead the wild hunt after you. Leave the dark lands as fast as you can. You won't be safe until you enter your own land, and maybe not even then. Her vengeance may follow you. She paused a moment. Can you do this, Molly? To save my brother, I'll do anything. Good. I'll return at nightfall. And with that, she vanished into the trees. This time, no twig snapped under her foot. No bush trembled. It was as if she'd never been there. Guest frowned at me. You hit me. I'm sorry I slapped your hands, but I had to listen to Aislinn, just as I must go with her tonight and do my best to save Thomas. Madog not like this. He won't let you go with her. Surely Madog will see I have no choice. Guest shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. But I say, don't go. He picked up the caterpillar and placed it inside the little stone house. Adding a leaf for the roof, he showed me the hole he'd made in one wall. Door, he said, so Caterpillar can go outside. I watched him make a pebble path from the door to a little fence he'd made of sticks. He was really clever with his hands. Maybe when we got home, if we got home, he'd help Daddo fix things. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 11. I'm going to record chapter 12 next. We had a visitor during this whole thing who was very needy. This is Sophie. She wanted some petting. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. That was the end of chapter 11. And look forward to chapter 12. I'll talk to you soon, friends. Bye-bye.